sport the rest of the world calls football doesn't require helmets or shoulder pads, but in FIFA Street 3, there's plenty of contact. Borrowing its design from EA's NBA and NFL Street franchises, fancy footwork is just as important as over-the-top kicks. After 2 mediocre outings last generation, the series is making its first steps onto the HD pitch. But it's still ringing up a few too many yellow cards. Arcade sports games may not rely on all the niggling details The Sims generally have, but that's no excuse for not creating some imaginative, accessible gameplay options. You get neither from FIFA Street 3. It's about as bare bones as it gets. There's a series of challenges that you can take on that ask you to win in specific ways. Sometimes you'll be asked to score only using volleys, and sometimes no tricks are allowed. There are only a few different types, and the mode gets tiring rather quickly. Aside from that, there's single-system head-to-head play for up to 4 players on the 360 and 7 on the PS3, and up to 4 players can go online at a time for the total team effort. But this is where the options end. There are no online tournaments or leagues, and no real player or team development to speak of. While the FIFA license brings real players into the game, they come from just 18 different countries. Considering how much time there's been between releases in the series, there's no excuse for such a limited amount of content. FIFA Street 3 follows the same pattern as other games in the Street family of products. You perform tricks, build up a meter, and then unleash overpowering game-breaker moves. It plays more like hockey than soccer, with slide tackles handed out like checks, passes bouncing off the wall, and one-timers accounting for the majority of scoring. If you typically find soccer games to be a little too slow, this 5-on-5 urban version is definitely a tick above the push-and-run tactics of simulations. There are no yellow cards, no offsides, and games take place on tops of buildings, on the beach, or odd places like oil rigs. Each area manages to change the gameplay slightly since goals are different sizes and the wall surrounding the court is different. The fun in FIFA Street 3 comes from pulling off fancy footwork. Whether you're tipping the ball to yourself and playing hacky sack or running up the walls, it all feels as it should. Unfortunately, winning often comes down to which team can rack up the most game breakers. This makes games devolve into one player constantly wrenching on the right analog stick to perform slick dribbles, while the other feverishly rips off slide tackles, hoping to dislodge the ball. It amounts to soccer games that never find a rhythm or flow. Otherwise, FIFA Street 3 plays fairly well. The controls are responsive no matter which of the 4 classes you choose, and it's fairly balanced in that if you utilize the strengths of each player, it's possible to be successful. But there's not a lot of depth to explore, and after a few hours, you'll feel like you've seen all there is to see. FIFA Street 3 looks to be running on the same engine that NBA Street Home Court utilized. It has the same overexposed look and stylized cartoon-like versions of the players. The animation is incredibly smooth, making some of the more over-the-top tricks seem plausible. Player models can look a little dodgy when viewed up close, but the trade-off is the fairly detailed courtside environments. The soundtrack is decidedly European, with lots of electronic beats, versus the metal and rock onslaught you get with games like Madden.
Get ready for this, party people in the house, get ready for this. To you, so what you gonna do? And do you wanna run the house and turn
FIFA Street 3 is action-packed, well-balanced, and fun for multiplayer sessions, but its lack of content and simple play mechanics stifle the long-term prospects. If you're a hooligan looking for something different, it's worth a rent, but those with little interest in the sport should have the same level of interest in this game.